As we reach this part of the course, we are going to see how we can use foreign keys inside of our models. So this is the flight model that we created that has three variables: an origin to a flight and a destination and the duration of that flight. Now ultimately though, this is not the model that we actually want to present in my flight, because here again I'm using a character field for things like the origin and the destination, when in reality I probably want to use something like another table for representing airports, and then some relationship between every flight and airport. So let's go ahead and try implementing this idea right now, that I can go back and create a new class aside from my class flight, and this class is going to be an airport class. So airport, and the same as flight, this airport class is going to um, implement the models. So from model the models, um, and s here. Okay, so as I said, this is also a model, and I would like for this airport class to have a code, which is a character field. So models dot um, character field, so char field, and I'm going to give it a maximum length, which is a necessary argument to any char field. So let's say the code is a maximum of 3, because it can consist only of 3 characters, and as well as a city. So I want a city um, inside of my airport. So sorry, the airport that is inside of that city. So it's going to be a models.character field too, and let's give it a maximum length of 72. So I'm assuming that the maximum length of my city is going to be 72 or less. So now we've written uh, the code and the city. Let's just enter. And now let's go ahead and give this airport model a string representation the same way we did for our flight model. So we're going to add that function, str function, and I'm going to give it an argument of self, which is that airport object, as I said, with the code, city, which are the variables. So a specific code and a specific city. And so let's let it return for us a formatted string, which contains the code, and that's first the city, and then followed by, let's say, the code, which would be inside of a parenthesis. And so self.code, close that curly braces, and then the parentheses. And so this is how we'll be representing an airport. And now our flight model needs to change a little bit. No longer will origin and destination be char fields that are just storing text, but instead we're going to be using what's called as a foreign key. And so I'm going to replace char field and import origin origin and destination by this foreign key. And so this foreign key is going to reference that airport table. And so let's go ahead and write in here foreign key, and inside of that foreign key I'm going to specify from where I'm going to add that reference of that other table. And so I'm going to be writing airport, which is the table that I'd like to refer to, which is the reference. And so I can provide some additional arguments. So this alone would be enough, but I can add some additional arguments like on delete. I would like to models dot cascade. And so okay, and so what does this mean? Well, when I have tables that are related to each other, SQL needs some way to know what should happen if you delete something. If I have a flight from, let's say, JFK to New York, to London maybe, and later in time I decide to delete that airport from my database, what should happen to that file? What happens to flights, not file, is that its referencing would be also deleted. So all the flights of that airport would be deleted. And so if I ever delete an airport of that airport table, it's going to delete all of the corresponding flights of that airport. And there are other onDelete parameters that we can set for saying like, don't even let me delete an airport if there are flights that are going or coming from that airport, and that's called the models.protect. But there are other ways to implement similar types of constraints. And another argument that we could add is the related name argument. And a related name, as we'll see in just a moment, is going to be a way of me accessing a relationship in the reverse order. That from a flight, I can take a flight and say dot origin to get the flight's origin in airport. What the other question that I might also ask is its origin. If I have an airport, how do I get all of the flights that have this airport as an origin? And so here, if I give it a related name to this foreign key, Django is going to automatically set up a relationship that goes in that opposite direction. And so here, well, if we have an airport and I want to know all of the flights that have that airport as their origin, the reasonable name for related name would be something like departures. So I want all the flights that inside of that airport that are departing from that airport. And so we're going to be adding the same thing for the destination. And so before we add it, as I said, if I give a related name to this foreign key, Django will automatically set that relationship going in that opposite direction. And so here, if you have an airport and I want to know all of the flights that have this airport as the origin, I'm going to type in that airport with the associated with departures, and we're going to be seeing that in just a moment. And likewise, we'll be doing the same thing for destination. Instead of a character field, I'll be adding also a foreign key, and on delete I want to cascade, and the related name, I'll be changing the related name, and so if the related name for the origin is departures, the most suitable name for the destination would be arrivals. And so because so we said arrivals, because if we have an airport that might want to access all of the arrivals of the correspond to that airport, so I would like to add that arrivals. And so now I've added two things. I've added a new class called airport, and I've modified my existing flight model. So this has changed my Python code, but hasn't yet changed in my database. So in order to make that change in the database, as we said in the previous video, it's a two-step process. Step 1, go to manage.py and go to that command inside of Python inside of that command and type in python manage.py make migrations. And now to say look for any new changes that have been made to models.py, and go ahead and create a migration to make those changes to the database. And so let's just check if everything we wrote is correct. So here we have the airport model, we have the code and the city, which are char fields of max length 3 and 72, and this is how it's represented, the string representation. So origin is models.foreign-key with these 3 arguments, and here is models.foreign-key airport on delete and related name. So and the same as for the origin and the related name, they will be the on delete and the related name, which are the arguments that we've explained. And now we're going to click on run, and so now what I've created is a new migration file, and this migration file, which is right here, is going to tell me how it's going to create a model called airport, and this is also going to alter, so it's going to as it's written here, it's going to alter the destination that we've created and alter the origin field in my flight, because origin and destination, because we've changed those to be no longer be character fields, but to be so as you can see here, we've changed them to be, instead of char fields or character fields, but to be foreign key. So they're referencing a particular airport. So that's something that has to be changed in the database. And to make that change, we have to run something like python manage.py migrate, which is the second step. So we've made those migrations, we've made those changes, and through migrate, I'm going to be applying those changes to my database. So now we've now applied this migration that we've just created, and our database is now up to date. So what can we do now? Now I can go ahead and go back to the shell. So python manage.py shell, and the first thing we need to do as soon as this shell comes is to import from the models that import everything actually using the star. So first from flight dot models, I'm going to be importing star, which is everything. So let's import. So first from flights.models import, I'll be importing star everything. And so that's because instead of importing flight and airport, and we might have many other models inside of our models.py, and so instead of just writing each one at a time, I could just add that star, which will import for me everything inside of my models.py. And I can now create. So we've got now our first error, which says module not found error. So let's just try and retype flights.model instead of flight, import everything, so star. And now we have another error, which is the module not found error also. So the first error was no module found flight, so the name of the module was wrong, so we did not write it correctly, and that's why we've got the first error. And now, although I have fixed that module name, modules is not written correctly, and thus why we have that module not found error. So to fix that, flights.models, and of course preceded by from. So from flights.models, I'm going to import star. Now um, I can create an airport. I can say something like JFK equals to airport, which is the name of my model, and this airport has two variables, a code of maximum length of 3, which um, happens to be JFK, and its city, let's say, is New York. So city is New York. And of course inside of character strings, because these are character fields. And now of course save. We need to save them, because if we don't save them, we're not going to be able to add it to our database. Enter. I can now create another one too. So LHR equals to airport, city, first code, which as the name implies is LHR, and the city is going to be London. And of course inside of character strings, so close the parentheses and hit enter, and of course don't forget to save, which is the most important step. So I can also do one more just to visualize how our table is going to be. So we have we can add DXB, and so this is an airport which has the code DXB, and the city is Dubai, and close the quotations, so Dubai, and save that. Of course the most important step, dxb.save. So now that I've created the airports JFK, LHR, and DXB, and so now let's just try adding one last one, because we'll be using these airports to create several flights. So just in order to have a variety of airports and flights, so LIN airport, which has a code LIN, and comma city, and the city is Milan, and close the quotations. So okay, and now the one most important step we need to have is to save that airport, so lin.save. So now I've created 4 airports that can be added to my airport database, and now I can add a flight. So I can add a flight which is equal to flight object. The origin let's say is LHR or JFK, doesn't matter, and the destination is LHR, and the duration is equal to 415, and I'm going to go ahead and save that flight. So I've created the 4 airports, I've created a flight and saved it. If I type in flight now, so the name of the flight that we created now, I can see that this flight is from New York to London, but I can also notice that the code is JFK and LHR, because in the representation, the string representation of my airport, I specified that I wanted the city and followed by the code of that city inside of parentheses. And so this is my first airport, and this is my second airport. This is the the origin, and this is the destination, and this of course is the ID. But I can also now say not just by adding a flight. Aside from having a flight, I can say flight.origin, and flight.origin is going to give me airport. So that airport is JFK, of code JFK, and the city is New York. I can also say, let's say I don't want the code, I just want the city. So flight.origin.city, and that's going to give me only New York. Let's say I want the code, flight.origin.code, and that's going to give me JFK. And if I start with the origin, something like JFK or London, I can say LHR.arrivals.all. So you can see here that we have we have a query set that has one flight from New York to London. So all the arrivals that I going to London, LHR, is only actually one flight that is from New York. And so this now gives us the ability to manipulate SQL just by using these Python models. And I now have Python classes that represent all these variables, all these different types of data. I can interact with classes and their properties, and Django is going to take care of the process for me in order to tell what the SQL queries should be to perform these saves and adding those airports and flights to my databases. And so in this video, we've seen how we can make use of foreign keys to relate to two different tables to each other. So we related that airport to that flight, and we saw how we can manipulate them and get some data out of them using the Python shell or Django shell. And we'll be explaining more and more of these in the next video.